Pippa and her boyfriend had just moved into their new apartment when they saw a blushing scene. A heart-stopping live broadcast from the window across the street. It was as if they'd been drawn into an amazing world of unknowns and excitement. It was something that excited and intrigued Pippa. She couldn't help but mimic the scene in the window across the street. This added an unexpected element of fun to their lives. But every time Pippa was ready, her boyfriend Jamie was already asleep. This made Pippa feel very frustrated. The next day, Pippa told her best friend about her problems. But she was surprised to learn that this kind of voyeuristic culture has long been common among young people. Not only do they like to peep into other people's lives, they also like to show their own lives to others. Some people even want to find more excitement. They even shoot videos of their programs to find more excitement. After hearing this, Pippa felt less guilty. She and her boyfriend began to go to the window more boldly. They watched what was going on in the window across the street as if it were a serialized drama. They even bought binoculars to get a better view of every detail in the room across the hall. One day, Pippa realized that the actress in the opposite window had changed. It seemed that the man couldn't stand his loneliness and had found a new playmate. Pippa was fascinated by their new antics. She couldn't even resist a live screen with Jamie. However, Pippa was soon not satisfied with just watching a silent live broadcast. She turned to her best friend for help again. She told her that she could use mirrors to reflect lasers for sound reflection. Pippa and Jamie hit it off and decided to try this high-tech method. They cleverly took advantage of the men's party to mount the mirrors on the wall across the room. Jamie couldn't wait to set up the device. Finally, they were able to extract a voice from the other side of the room. But before the joy could subside, the situation on the other side of the room suddenly became chaotic. Sweetie witnessed a man and another woman walk into the bathroom at a party. The man, furious and violent, broke Sweetie's eyeglasses. Pippa saw it all. But Pippa didn't do anything about it right away. She was deep in thought. The next day, Pippa was still reeling from last night's events. But when she looked up, she was surprised to find Sweetie standing across the street. Obviously, she's here for her glasses. Pippa quickly adjusted her mood and greeted her warmly. The two of them had a great conversation during the fitting. Pippa even offered to leave her business card. She invited Sweetie to go to the spa for the weekend. In the evening, Pippa excitedly shared her plan with Jamie. But Jamie's reaction was not what she expected. Jamie strongly discouraged Pippa from continuing to pry into other people's lives, and even more so, from reaching out to Sweetie. Jamie believed that snooping was inherently wrong, and Pippa seems to be getting more and more addicted to it. He feared that the situation was spiraling out of control. However, Pippa did not heed Jamie's advice and went to the spa with Sweetie. In the course of the conversation, Pippa learned that Sweetie was an international model, and the man was an excellent photographer. For love, she gave up her career and chose to stay at home to take care of him. However, without her financial resources, her life was not satisfactory, and she had to accommodate the man in every way. Pippa looked at her helplessness and hopelessness. She could not tell her the truth that she had planned to tell her. Despite her inner conflicts and struggles, Pippa didn't stop snooping. She watched silently as she was deceived by a man, but could not help her. She waited for a chance to reveal the truth. Finally, when Sweetie was alone in the living room, Pippa activated the laser machine and projected the man's actions as a signal to the printer across the room. When the truth was laid out like a cold razor blade in front of Sweetie's face, her world came crashing down. She couldn't face the cruel reality. She couldn't believe that the man she loved would betray her. And then Jamie came out of the bedroom and asked Pippa why she was interfering in other people's lives. But Pippa was pulled by some kind of force. She couldn't stand by and watch her sweetheart go into the abyss. Her heart almost stopped when she saw Sweetie grab a knife and approach the man. But she finally came to her senses and dropped the knife. Pippa and Jamie were both relieved. The next day, they decided to sit down and talk. Pippa promised never to interfere in anyone's life again. She promised not to pick up the binoculars again, but as fate would have it, the scene in front of her plunged her into despair. Sweetheart's life had already passed. Pippa couldn't believe her eyes. She felt that she had killed her because she had told the truth. Jamie saw the scene and lost his temper. He left. Pippa spends her days blaming herself and feeling helpless. But life didn't stop there. That day, When she picked up the telescope again, she saw a man walking into the bar downstairs. An inexplicable force drove Pippa to follow him. In the bar, Pippa met the man's eyes. The man approached Pippa as if he had seen his prey. The two began an ambiguous conversation. The atmosphere became more and more ambiguous under the influence of alcohol. The man invited Pippa to his home. Though Pippa knew in her heart what this meant, Pippa couldn't resist the man's charms. And then a big scene was about to unfold, catalyzed by alcohol. But then Jamie suddenly returned, with a bouquet of flowers in his hand. He stepped through the familiar door with the wish to reconnect with Pippa, but Pippa was nowhere to be found. He anxiously called out Pippa's name, but got no answer. Jamie saw a shocking sight. Jamie couldn't believe his eyes. So he grabbed his binoculars to make sure. The pain of being hurt by those closest to him was excruciating. The next day, Pippa came home in clean clothes, but she found the door of her room open, and her boyfriend was hanging there. Although she knew that her boyfriend's death was due to her betrayal, she stubbornly believed that she was not responsible for his death. She went to her best friend to talk about her misery. The comfort of her girlfriends made her feel even more strongly about herself. They agreed that since they had broken up, their behavior was not a betrayal, so her boyfriend's death had nothing to do with her. The guilt in Pippa's heart gradually dissipated, and she seemed to have regained her former self. But fate didn't seem to be ready to let her go. That day, Pippa was invited to a man's photography exhibition. At the exhibition, she met all kinds of people. When the man took the stage, he invited his girlfriend to come on stage. Pippa thought he was talking about her, but the next moment, her jaw dropped. Sweetie walked past her alive. Wasn't she already dead?
This new exhibition tells a modern fable of a sweet young woman named Pippa.
Pippa's mind was filled with doubt and fear. She didn't know what kind of conspiracy she had gotten herself into. She was even more shocked when the man showed her art photos on stage. Those once private moments were now exposed for all to see. Pippa felt ashamed. She finally realized that everything she and her boyfriend did was being monitored by the man. They had become the victims of men's performance art. The guilt and remorse in Pippa's heart was like a tidal wave. So she hurriedly left the showroom and went to the man's home to look for answers. There she discovered a shocking secret. The man's house had a compartment, and that was the source of their spying. Pippa finally realized what was going on, but it was too late. She decided to leave this place of painful memories. But as she was packing, she saw a flock of dead birds outside her window, the pets that her boyfriend had taken care of before he died. An inexplicable fear and doubt came over her. Why did all these birds suddenly die? At that moment, the sweetheart across the street was waving at him. There was a hint of mockery in her smile. Soon after, the man and Sweetie returned home. When they saw the red wine on the table, they drank a glass of it. But then the printer suddenly started. It was written on the paper that Jamie had been killed by them. The two of them are in a state of panic. They looked at each other with a sense of weakness and fear. They grabbed their binoculars and looked across the street. But they found Pippa standing on the roof of the building with a firm, cold stare. Then she put away her computer and quickly left, and the two men rushed after her. They finally surrounded Pippa in an apartment building. The men asked Pippa what she had discovered. Pippa angrily accused Sweetie of poisoning her boyfriend, and that the hanging was just a cover-up. But Sweetie denied it, because she was convinced that Pippa had no proof. Pippa felt desperate and helpless. She accused them of deliberately seducing her and exposing her privacy, not only to get her loving boyfriend killed. But the good news is that she has nothing to fear now. At that moment, Sweetie suddenly fainted, and that's what scared the hell out of the man. Pippa looked at the man who was about to pass out.
Take one final look.
A few days later, new tenants moved into Pippa's former apartment. They looked across the street. There were still shadows in the windows, but this time there was no malice in their eyes, only peace and calm. The movie Peeping Tom introduces us to this thrilling battle. It tells us a profound truth. When you gaze into the abyss is also gazing into you. This is X Recaps. Thanks for subscribing and liking.